excited to be here with Miss Ann Dillard. I am Candice Richardson Dickens, the host of Dope Black Therapist and the owner of Color of Trauma and Healing, a BIPOC provider therapy. And I just want to say, you all are in for a treat. So, Miss Ann, people have been blowing up my phone, my email, because they want to talk about this mother-daughter attachment trauma. And because that's such a significant relationship, right? There's no other relationship like that. And recently I was watching this show, a couple of shows, like back to back. And one show had Atlantic Housewives. It had a character named Marlo. And she talked about how her mother had addiction. There was a rupture in that relationship. And then another character, what's her name? It's gonna hit me. I wrote her name down. Kenya Moore had talked about, having a feeling from her mom of being rejected. And then it made me think about, we see quite a few people who have ruptures in their relationship or strained relationships, like Diane Carroll, Maya Angelou, even Oprah Winfrey have talked about
Mhm.
how that relationship has been ruptured and it's been had such a profound effect. So I want us to jump in and let's begin with definition. What is mother-daughter attachment disorder? What is that, and why is this relationship so unique?
Wow. Thank you, Miss Candice, first of all, for having me on your show. This is really exciting. I've been looking forward to having this conversation with you. The mother daughter attachment is so, so important. And when there's a rupture to that attachment, then there's so much that goes awry. So, your mother is your first core attachment. That's your first primary caregiver, whether it's regardless of what the relationship is, whether you're an adoptee, whether you are with your biological mom, that's your first being with her, that's your first home. That's your
Mm,
first
like a first love.
that's your first. That is the first, right? And so when there is an issue that cause a rupture to that attachment, then that affects all your other significant relationships.
Mm. And so it affects the friendships, romantic relationships, all of that.
It'll even affect down to your job and your relationship with your supervisor, your boss, or other authority figures in your life.
Mm. So what kind of ruptures disrupt that kind of relationship? Because it's almost like a love affair that gets broken or interrupted. What
Oh
kind of
yeah.
things cause that kind of rupture?
Yeah, there is so much that we find out, and I'm just going to give credit to I've been reading and doing a book club with the Mother Hunger Book Club by the author Kelly McDaniel.
Mm.
And so there are so many things that can cause a rupture. If I were to quote her and the materials from her book, she talks about the lack of nurturance, the lack of protection, the lack of guidance as
Mm.
being core things that you need in a relationship with your mother. And with the absence of those things, then there is significant hurt, there is significant rupture in your relationship.
So if the mom's not present as a nurturer, then that's one of the things that hurts the relationship.
Right. And a lot of people really have the notion that all moms are born natural nurturers. And all moms are not born natural nurturers. And not only that, your mom's ability to nurture in a lot of cases, had there not been significant healing or significant intentionality about how she's going to parent, if she wasn't nurtured, that directly impacts her ability to nurture.
So is it a mom or is it a female nurturer that's in your life? So can you raise by maybe an aunt or grandmother, and if they are not nurturers, then that
Yeah,
impacts
we're talking about mothers.
you.
Right. And there are cases where there are other significant people who can take that surrogate role in your life. But if that's not your mom, that there's still that broken relationship or broken attachment with your mother.
Mm. What comes up to mind as you're saying it, there used to be this show called The Gilmore Girls.
Ah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, remember that? And the
Hmm.
mother, I think, had her as an adolescent. And there's
Yes.
a reverse in parenting where the daughter was super responsible and the mother was just like this free loving person that was still in adolescenthood. Would
Yeah.
that be an example of one of the things that happens with the rupture? Having,
And that's an excellent example where children are parentified, like the example that you just gave. When and for people who might not know that term, is when a child takes on the role of a parent, whether it's parenting a parent or parenting siblings, then they become parentified, and that is a damage to their relationship, because that is not that
mm,
the role that the child is meant to assume.
okay. So
Yes,
what kind of things cause a child to step into that place? Because you hear that a lot. Like I raised myself or I raised my siblings. What kind of things have you found as a
yeah.
clinician that cause you to
Well,
place in situations?
yeah. I think when we think about there are so many things that can cause it, right? In some families, mom has had to work. Some moms have to work around the clock just to provide, right? And
Mhm.
so it is upon the older sibling, or in some families, this older one is responsible for this younger one, and this older one, and they divide like that. But when mom has had to carry such a responsibility of being, one, the sole provider, or have to or is absent in whatever way, for whatever reason, whether it's because of illness, whether it's because of mental illnesses, or addiction, or working, right?
Mm,
Whatever that brings that absenteeism from mom.
yeah.
A lot of times, one of the children step up, and sometimes there are moms who just are, we would call them laissez-faire. They're not structured, and they don't have the discipline um, to have order in the
Mm,
household. Then you see sometimes children stepping up into that parenting position, which is called parentification.
yeah. Could there also be some cultural factors? In other words, in certain cultures, the oldest daughter steps in if mom is working or mom is sick or there are lots of siblings or if
Right.
there's an incarceration or an addiction or if there's something happening that she steps up. Would that be
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent, but what I am saying is, when a child has to step up in a parental role, it does have an impact on that child.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I was saying that who came to mind for me as Brittany Griner, she was released today from Russia from the prison.
Yeah.
And when a mother is absent, could that be a trauma for a child? Even if they're not in a parentified role, would that be a trauma? When you have a mother who's so far away.
Absolutely. And okay, so thinking about that situation, not just, let's take out that mom was even arrested.
Yeah.
The fact that mom is away, and we have moms who are away traveling for whatever reason, moms who are in the service,
Mm-hmm.
those different kinds of things. For me, one of the challenges that I had growing up was, when I was about 12, my mom migrated to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And so that directly impacted me, right? I don't talk about it much, but the more I do the work that I'm doing, the more research that I do, the more I realize how impactful that was. Right? She didn't leave because necessarily because she wanted. She left to create a better life for us, more opportunities. So I had that clear understanding, but nevertheless, her absence had a great impact on me.
Mm, yeah. But the intention was good and it was to create a better life for you. Right? Similar to
Absolutely.
moms who are in the military. The intention is good to create a better life. It still has an impact on the child, even if there are other
Oh, yeah.
providers, caregivers there.
Because
Okay.
your brain is going through the process of, whether it's abandonment, feeling like you don't belong, trying to fit into other family units because your core provider, or your core attachment figure is no longer there.
Mm.
So, and those are some of the things that we don't talk about in like immigrant communities. We don't really explore the impact of migration, and how it affects the children.
Why do you think we don't talk about
Well, it's taboo. I mean, your
it?
parents, if you look at it, you are expected to be grateful that your parents want to create a better quality of life for
Yeah.
you and more opportunities. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, there's so much to be grateful for. Yes, there's so much to be thankful for and appreciative for. And there are also some other things.
Yeah. Yeah. There's that taboo, that shame experience. If you should be grateful, why are you complaining? Right? So it puts you in
Exactly.
a weird position where I can't honor what I'm feeling, where there's confusion about being
Right.
with a person who's like a stranger to me, but who sacrificed everything so I can be in this country. Yeah.
Yeah. But first of all, let me back up a little bit. You got to be in a position where your feelings are even recognized or validated.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge. And sometimes children are they're seen but not heard.
Exactly.
They're not,
And that's another thing that, right, can cause that break in that attachment relationship.
yeah.
If the daughter, her feelings aren't validated, her feelings aren't respected, or even there's no if there's no room for her to have feelings.
Right. What about parents who are present
Mhm.
and there's still that rupture? What caused that? Because there are people who've been blowing my phone. They're like, no, I'm present, but we just have such a strained relationship. And
Right.
can you speak to that? Because some mothers are present,
Hmm.
but that there's still this rupture where there's this tension between these
Yeah.
two females. Can you talk about
Yeah.
that and how that,
Yeah. That is
or the
a
mothers who are overly
dynamic.
present?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Where parents are present, and parents, there are different levels of presence. Some people call it over mothering, when you're like all the way hovering like helicopter mom, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
the phrase. Or in mesh, when you're so close,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to tell where one person starts and the other person stops.
Yeah.
That there is that, but there is also the natural progression in developmental stages that your girls go through, where they are trying to find out who they are individually, and they might not feel like they can openly share that with you.
So would
So
they call that the division in the relationship?
exactly, that individuation is happening as they become more independent. They're trying to flex a little, see what boundaries they have, how they can operate as their brains are developing and they're developing. And so a lot of times when I find my teens going through this stage, what happens is mom takes it personal a lot of times.
Mm. Yeah, because many moms, I don't want to stereotype all moms, but many moms will say, I've given everything to this child. I'm always there. I'm making decisions. I'm always thinking about them. Why is that pushback that they're bigger with moms than with dads?
Yeah, it's you know part of the research that I'm doing, and I'm doing a lot of research now because I'm um, in school pursuing my PsyD, which is similar to a PhD in the Caribbean American mother daughter relationship, and so I'm doing a lot of research around that. And what I'm finding, research is showing that the mother and the daughter, they are closer than any other intergenerational group or
Mm.
dyad, closer than father and son, closer than father daughter, mother son, because they are much more alike. Their brains are much more similar. The gray matter in their brains are so much alike in the mother daughter that they find um, so much similarity. And sometimes that similarity brings about that conflict as well.
Talk about that gray matter. What is that for people who aren't brain people who aren't know about all this
These are
research?
different sections of the brain that control things like emotions and different functions in the brain. And they find, I don't have all of it in front of me to break it down, but they find that is much more similar in the mother-daughter relationship or dyad than it is in any other coupling.
Got it. So when mothers and daughters have conflict, they're so similar emotionally. They may express it differently, but same person.
Exactly. Exactly. And so they have the similarity in lifestyle, or different things that they go through from menstrual cycles to menopause. You know, similar experiences that bring about, whether it might bring about closeness or it might bring about discord.
Interesting.
Mhm.
I never really looked at it from that perspective, that they really are intertwined. Right? Mentally they cycle together, right? And the
Yes.
mother will predict when the child will have her own menopause season.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, if mother hasn't been able to deal with her own issues or her own upbringing or trauma or things like that, inadvertently she will pass that on, in or it'll show up in her ability to parent, because as you parent your child, it's almost like you're reliving your life, right? So I think about parenting my child when I was parenting my daughter. She got to a certain age in her life, it triggers that same stage and those that age for me as I was growing up. And so I noticed that pattern as it depends on where I was in my life growing up as a daughter, how I
Mhm.
was able to respond effectively to her as she was growing up, right? Because I was reliving through her experiences and her development, I was reliving some of my own stuff.
Do you think that mothers who relive it do a do-over through their daughters? They give their daughters what they didn't have, or they get triggered in a way that they pull away from them based on what?
I've seen both. I've seen both. You know, sometimes it's scary because they haven't been able or have the tools or the awareness to address their own stuff, right? I didn't necessarily have the awareness. I didn't have the tools. I started doing this work long after my children were grown,
Oh, wow.
right? And
Mm,
so sometimes you find mothers who are intentional and they're doing the repair because they have the information and they have the resources, and they'll lean in,
mhm,
meaning that they're not pulling away or doing things that cause more of a conflict. They're leaning in
mhm,
versus those who are just really frightened and triggered. Their own trauma wounds are triggered, and
mhm.
so they don't know what to do, and their actions of leaning and pulling away really then causes more of a disruption.
And that's where the abandonment comes in.
Exactly.
Got
Or
it. Okay.
feeling like they have to navigate on their own. And then the other thing that I see in my teen girls that I work with, not just teen girls, adult women too, is that when mom seems incapable of dealing with whatever daughter is going through, daughter becomes protective in a way that she keeps her feelings to herself and try to spare mom from any kind of
Mhm,
um,
mhm,
upset. So they'll come to therapy session and they'll be, "Oh, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good. Okay, mom,
mhm,
I'm going to do the rest of the session with daughter. Thank you for being here. We'll check back in." And we go in session with the daughter. And it's like, "Miss Ann, I can't tell her. No, I will not tell her. I tell her what I think she wants to know, and that's it."
So they, in turn, they're protecting mom and taking care of mom, but then silencing themselves.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
So
So
from the,
that's a common dynamic that I see.
yeah.
Even
What
in
about
grown
the,
women. Even in
yeah,
grown
yeah. I know from the women who won't speak, talk back to their mom. But, that's my mother. Even though she's wrong, And that I'm not sure if that's cultural or is that conditioned behavior of
Right.
taking care of mom. Is that something that you find with daughters that we take care of the woman who took care of us?
Exactly. I don't think there's any one thing we can point to say what does that, what causes that, because sometimes in some cases mom is real domineering and you really don't have a voice, and sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
just out of respect, and some spaces it's about culture and how you were brought up. I've had grown women to tell me I can't work on my mother wounds until my mother passes on. I just can't go there. There's not space for me to work on that and continue to love and take care of her.
Yeah. So then what happens with them? How does that manifest if they can't do that work because they're afraid of disrespecting her? What they
Yeah.
do?
So they hold it in, they cope the best way they can, and sometimes they end up passing it on to their children.
Mm. So it becomes generational.
Absolutely.
What about the daughters who go to war with their moms? I mean, they just, there's no holding back. But there is no holding back, not just with mom, but with everybody. It's like everybody gets it.
Yeah.
Do you find that that's in relation to how they were parented, or do you find that there's some brokenness in the attachment? What do you
Yeah.
think of that? There's some
That
real,
could Yeah, that could be from any variety of things, right? There's not any one thing. I would say all the things that you said could definitely apply. And then also, let's not forget that we have daughters who have some serious mental health issues, just like we have moms who have serious mental health issues,
absolutely.
right?
Talk about how that affects the relationship.
And
What,
that directly affects the relationship when you have untreated mental health issues, because another thing that you're faced with is, I would say, ambiguous loss, the loss of a
mm,
relationship with a person who's present, but they don't have it to give you. They're there physically,
yeah,
but mentally, emotionally, they're not there,
I'm not present. So then
right?
what does that do to the mom to have a child who looks like their child, but they're not present and they can't fix it, they can't heal it? What does that do to that mom and what does that mean to do to that relationship?
Yeah. And that, a mom in that situation, I imagine, I've worked with a lot of moms, they feel helpless. And
Yeah.
so until you're ready to really look at and unpack some things about the relationship, why is this daughter feeling so resentful or vengeful towards mom? What is going on? What is it that she needs or
Mm,
and have not been able to identify? And is mom capable of hearing her and giving her what she needs? Because sometimes, depending on the error
yeah.
that mom or the generation that mom is in, she may not be equipped to even hear.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Because mom has her own stuff, the disappointment that's there. Mm,
Right. And think about, as a mom, your primary purpose or feeling is to mother. You want to do a good job at it. You want to put your best foot forward. And so anytime there is a complaint or something mm, not acceptable to
mm,
daughter, it may be hard to hear because all they're hearing is you're a bad mom, you're a bad mom. And
yeah.
so you find in a lot of cases when moms start to hear that that's the narrative that they're hearing, then they become defensive and they'll throw out, well, I've sacrificed this, that, and the other.
The
And I
shame.
work, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
work with moms to say, yes, all of that is good. And there is something else that she wants to tell you that she needs.
That she didn't get. Yeah. Mm.
Right.
Yeah. Because I used to work at a clinic and what we would say is it's either the mother or the other. And that for a lot of times if something didn't happen with the mother or something happened too much with the mother, that they were either too critical or doing too much hovering. respectful to controlling to
Yeah.
something, and it had a negative impact. So,
Right.
but I love what you said about what if you have a child like Phoebe Moore Campbell. When she wrote the book 72-Hour Hold, her daughter Maya Campbell was on Ilana Van Zant's um, show, Fix My Life. And she was also on the show with LL Cool J in the 90s. But she had bipolar disorder.
Mhm.
And the book 72 Hours Hold was about the mother's quest to try to help her daughter. And it was a love story of a broken heart. So the mother said, no matter how much I reached out, no matter how much I tried to reason with her, she stopped trusting me. And
Yeah.
she stopped seeing me, and I became the enemy. I went from being the love of her life to being that woman who she despised.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very complicated, isn't it?
Yeah, very
Hmm.
sad.
And I
Very
think
much.
it's important that people also think about what role does in utero trauma plays in a child and this ability to attach, right? Because research shows that when moms, especially in their last semester, when they suffer any traumatic events, their it directly impacts the child with more cortisol being released, that stress chemical being released in that child.
Mm.
That directly impacts their ability to attach as well.
Wow. So the more stressed you are during the pregnancy, the more
Right.
the child will have difficulty latching on or connecting with the emotional.
Exactly. And that there was a research study done with moms who were pregnant during Hurricane Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
And they found that a large percent of these moms, they followed them through the birth and childhood, infancy and childhood, and they found that a large percentage of these children, by the time they were 5 years old, they were on the trajectory to be identified as having ADHD. So we have to look at what kind of stress is coming intrautero. We have to look at epigenetics. What
Mm-hmm.
role does that play in what is being passed on to that child as well?
Reisner's book back here talks about that same thing about the black woman's womb is the most sometimes the most dangerous place because of what we go through systematically in the society that's sometimes not very kind to us or the
Right.
people that we're connected to. And then,
Yeah,
as you're saying, ADHD, a trauma brain looks like an ADHD brain. So I'm wondering if some of these
exactly.
babies who've been over medicated are actually having trauma from in utero.
Yeah. And I saw that when I was working in the school system. A lot of students who were diagnosed with ADHD, they weren't being looked at for trauma because a lot of those symptoms mirror each other. And
Mm.
treating a child for ADHD doesn't take care of the trauma that the child endures.
Wow. So if that is the case, then what if in that mother-daughter dynamic, what people are really looking at when they look at ADHD in girls, what if they're really looking at trauma that's coming from the relationship? And it can
Exactly.
be misdiagnosed, just like a lot of things with girls, especially girls of color get misdiagnosed with underreported with Asperger's or autism. There are a lot of things that get missed with that. Yeah.
I think a lot of things are missed because we don't look at it through trauma informed lens.
Mm. Right.
Yeah, to say what is the history here. It's easier and in a lot of cases more lucrative to diagnose somebody with ADHD than it is to say that they're suffering from they really have a bad case of trauma.
Yeah. And that something happened here. Yeah.
Exactly.
Something serious
Exactly.
happened and the safety that's there. Wow. So what are some things that you would recommend for, let's say, for someone who does have a relationship that there's rupture, where there's the mother-daughter are having disconnection or there's tension in the relationship.
Hmm.
Or the mother doesn't feel safe or the daughter doesn't feel safe, or they're not even speaking. Because I know quite a few people whose daughters have really disconnected completely. Oh, mothers have disconnected because they say, it's too much for me. What
Yeah.
is it that you would say to help repair the relationship?
Well, first of all, go to therapy, seek some help, seek somebody, and not just anybody, seek somebody who is skilled to help you navigate, right? Because I think it's really important when mothers and daughters go to therapy that you find somebody competent who's able to hold space for both of them, because you can sit on the outside and judge their situation, but the reality is these two people love each other, and when they get done with you, they're still going to love each other. So, how do you, as an outsider, hold space so that they can turn back towards each other and strengthen their love for each other? So, regardless of how they show up before you in therapy, you got to keep in mind they love each other.
I love each other.
In most cases, I should say, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah. And what would you say to the mother and daughters who's having trauma, and then there's these grandbabies who the mother said, I don't have access to this because there's such disappears here, that I don't have access here.
Yeah. I I'm a big proponent of going to find somebody who can help you navigate that space, because a lot of times,
Mm.
especially what I find is that in the older generation, let's say young adults, it's usually the daughter who's seeking help and want to fix things with their mothers, right? That's my experience. It might not be somebody else's experience. And so, what I find that is really important is to prepare mom to be in that space, to go on that journey.
Mm.
Because if she's not, again, those messages will keep coming up for her. Okay, she's telling me I'm not a good mom. All those defenses will
Yeah.
come into play, but getting her prepared to hear and reinforcing that, she's not saying you're a bad mom. She just wants you to look at some things that can strengthen your relationship.
I like that. And with that, the person's not trying to harm you. That's the
Exactly.
thing. They're not coming at you. Like they
Yeah,
may be coming with the issue that you're connected
exactly.
with, but they're not coming at you.
Right.
Yeah.
And I definitely walk when I'm doing mother-daughter work. I'll meet with mom separately, and I'll definitely even give her a script for some responses that might help daughter to keep coming back instead of saying, I'm not going, this is enough. I'm not going to talk with her. So I'll actually give her responses in script to say, here are some answers or responses that can keep you engaged without you feeling like you're a bad person.
Yeah. Yeah. So it really changes how they react to what they're hearing and how they're
Yeah.
receiving it, right? Because I love what you
Right.
said. For people who, heard the first part, that there's a love story that's here. And when the love story gets broken, right, it breaks the trust. And it's really
Yeah.
about allowing two people to get back to the love story. They may feel it. Like, what do I do to lose you? What do I do to scare you? What do I do to make you feel like you weren't good enough? And
Right.
that's really a powerful dance between mom and
Oh, that's a powerful bond. And it lasts beyond a lifetime.
And you said it's generational. It goes from mother, daughter.
Absolutely. Even after your mom is gone, your relationship is still there, whether it was a good relationship or not. That relationship still impacts you.
And that never changes.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
Mhm.
amazing. Right. How can someone who may want to do that work you just mentioned about the narrative work, how can they find you?
I am on social media. You can find me on Facebook and Dillard, or on Instagram, TikTok, um, YouTube, Ann Dillard. My website is anndillard.com, and without a E. So ANNDILLARD.com.
Mhm. And for those who didn't hear it again, we're going to ask Miss Ann to say it again. I'm going to give her some props. Ann is an amazing clinician. She is a dope
Thank
black
you.
therapist. She is not just a clinician, but she's also a healer of mother and daughter attachment disorder. And that is a specialty. Not everyone does this work, right? So
Yeah,
for those who didn't hear it, say it again, Miss Ann, because we want them to really lean in and look for you or look like someone who's like you so that when they realize that, wow, there's a brokenness in my relationship with my daughter, or I think I have some trauma from da 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 da, that they know who to look for.
absolutely.
How do they find you again?
You can find me on social media platforms and Dillard.com, and that's ANN, no E, DILLARD.com, or Ann Dillard LMFT on Instagram or on YouTube channels, TikTok, um, just on different social media platform. Ann Dillard.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Miss Ann. And you've been amazing. You've given us a lot of information, so I so appreciate you. If you know anyone who's watching this video who has mother-daughter attachment disorder, please share this with them. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe, and please share. We want to get the word out that there is help for mothers and daughters. I'm Candice Dickens, and this is the Black Therapist. If you're interested in finding a provider who's similar to Miss Ann, I have a BIPOC trauma directory called Color of Trauma and Healing.com. Thank you again, Miss Ann. Take care. Good
You're
night,
welcome.
everyone.